Have you ever wondered why so many beginners jump into the game of real estate and then they just end up frustrated, broke, or just plain out stuck? Listen, it's not bad luck, and it's not even timing. It's a handful of avoidable mistakes that silently drain your money, kills your momentum before you even realize what's happening. So I decided today that what I want to do is I want to walk you through the 5 biggest beginner real estate mistakes and how to avoid them so that you can start smart and build actual real wealth.
One shot, now the future is yours. Go!
By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which traps to steer clear of. You're going to learn how to think about deals the right way so that your first investment can be a confident building win instead of a painful learning experience. These mistakes, if ignored, can literally cost you tens of thousands of dollars or even more, especially in lost opportunities. And to make this simple, I put together a special infographic that lays out all 5 mistakes visually. It's kind of the shortcut that I like to provide you for new investors. So make sure you click the link below, grab your copy of the infographic. It's going to be your cliff notes and summary to today's entire video. And while you're at it, like, comment, and subscribe, because this is the kind of foundation that can save you years of trial and error. And worse, you might never even really get far down the road because you made a mistake. Best to start with just a little story that almost ended my real estate career before it got started. My wife and I had bought our very first house, and we lived in the upstairs and we rented out the basement. The rent we got from the basement covered our entire mortgage. We lived for free. So we were now excited about real estate. But when I bought my next investment property, I remember what happened when I had tenant turnover. And I had to bring thousands of dollars to the table to do carpet and paint and fix the house up. And I was so mad and frustrated because I was so cheap and so poor. I didn't have what I have since learned is what's called a SWAN account, a sleep well at night account. I did not have money in the bank just in case something bad happened because I was too busy spending it because I didn't have money. Well, this property had turnover and I needed thousands of dollars. And I remember just feeling angry for 2 weeks as I was going in myself to do most of the repairs and most of the painting. And I was so upset that I almost got out of the game. I'm so glad that I didn't, because 10 years later when I sold that house, I made over $130,000. And I remember at the moment of getting that check thinking, oh my gosh, this was so worth what I thought was such a big mistake. I'm so glad I stuck with it. Well, today I am making this video and I'm sharing these 5 tips with you because I want you to learn from my mistakes and other investors' mistakes so that you don't accidentally disqualify yourself from playing one of the most financially successful games of all time. With that, let's start with step 1. It's called ignoring cash flow. The first mistake that I see beginners make all the time is they're so invested into buying a property, but they're not looking at the cash flow. They get excited about chasing appreciation and hoping that the property is going to go up in value, and they forget the reality that cash flow is what keeps you in the game on a month-to-month basis. You see, without a positive monthly cash flow, every market swings. There's going to be unexpected repairs, and some of those are going to hit hard. So you want properties that pay you from day one. Cash flow, for example, on a rental, it's not glamorous. Cash flow with a lease option, a different strategy, takes the same asset, the same house, and makes you $1,000 a month. That is glamorous, and doing the right strategy and having the right kind of cash flow becomes the foundation ultimately of real wealth, because without it, your deals are much riskier than you realize. This is why if you're a newbie to the game of real estate, I recommend that you do get into lease options instead of traditional rentals, because they are a financial upgrade. They end up paying you $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 up front just on acquiring the property and moving a family in. And then cash flows a lot higher. You get the normal cash flow, you get the rent premium on top of that, you get the large deposit. And once you amortize it all out, it's like $1,000 a month. And for a lot of people, if they had 8 properties, each paying $1,000 a month, that's $8,000 a month. That's $100,000 a year. So if you ignore cash flow, it could hurt. Especially if you do a rental and it ends up only paying you $100 or $200 a month, and then repairs and vacancies in hindsight end up costing $200 or $400 a month, you get upside down real fast. Step 2, underestimating expenses. And for just a moment, I want to pause and I just want to talk about the air of positive psychology. When it comes to life and mindset, you want to cultivate a positive mindset. But when you're looking at the financials, when you're looking at the financial numbers, you don't want to be optimistic. It would be better to be pessimistic or at least realistic, because if you underestimate those expenses and all of a sudden it's an extra $2,000 here and $10,000 here, that could bury a new investor alive. This second mistake is ultimately underestimating expenses. You see, a property might look like a bargain on paper, but once you add in the maintenance, the taxes, the insurance, the vacancies, and the management costs, your profits might end up disappearing really fast. Many beginners, they skip this step because it feels tedious or intimidating, or they don't know how to do the math. And so they end up not really understanding where the money quietly leaks out. You need to run the numbers before signing anything. And you need to make sure that you know what your true net profit is likely going to end up being. And you should have a mentor or an experienced investor in your back pocket that can review your numbers just to make sure you're looking at the deal the right way so you don't have any nasty surprises down the road. Now, how do you figure the net profit? Well, you make a list of everything that you'll have to do to get that property ready. A real list with real prices, and always remembering to factor your time in. Sweat equity can be good, but the wrong deal can turn you into a contractor that you never wanted to be. I'll never forget this dude that bought a property, and he was between jobs, and he literally worked on this home every single day for 4 months. And he didn't follow an experienced investor's protocol. He was fixing up this home the way he thought he might want it to look like. And I remember at the end of 4 months, he sold his flip, which, by the way, I don't recommend, especially for newbies. But he sold this property, and he looked at his value of time, and he ended up making less money than minimum wage. He did not crunch the numbers the right way. Step 3, skipping neighborhood due diligence. Oof, this one can be nasty. The third mistake is skipping out on really understanding the neighborhood and what it can mean for your deal. You see, real estate, it's not just about a house. It's also about that adage of location, location, location. Schools, future development, the trend that your city is moving in, rental demand. All of these factors end up mattering more than most people think. Even the most beautiful houses can become a liability if it's in a declining, stagnant neighborhood. One of my biggest investment mistakes in my entire career was in 2009. The market had just crashed, and I had gone into Phoenix and Vegas and Florida, and I was buying thousands of homes at really amazing prices, but these were desirable areas. These are the places that people wanted to live. At the same time, I bought a tape of homes in the Midwest, and I fixed up those homes really nice too. But I didn't understand the neighborhoods. I didn't understand what it meant to be on the wrong side of the railroad tracks. I didn't understand what it meant to be with the wrong demographics or in blue states versus red states. And I got slaughtered on those deals because I didn't understand the power of the right neighborhood. And for that matter, this is now why I only buy in specific markets and specific zip codes and in specific areas inside those zip codes. And the real estate that I buy is never in my backyard. If you're a newbie, you're like, oh, I'm a real estate investor. I'm going to buy something in my backyard. And I'm like, an experienced investor goes to where the deals are. So I'm buying where there's population growth. I'm buying where jobs are being created. And I look at the macroeconomics. And if you're not subscribed to me and you don't understand some of my hot markets, make sure that you get subscribed and search for some of my other videos that are going to teach you the hot markets that I buy in, because those are the markets where I'm crushing it on my performance. Right, step 4, over leveraging. Oof. The fourth mistake is when you're laying out too much money and you've got too much debt load. Just because you qualify for a big loan doesn't mean you should take it. Beginners often max out financing, hoping for higher returns, and then they end up underwater when the market shifts or there's unexpected repairs that come up. You want to keep your risk manageable. Start small, prove your success, and scale from there. Leverage is a tool. It's not a crutch. And when you use it wisely, it's a multiplier of your gains without threatening your stability. My personal rule when it comes to buying single-family homes is I always buy 30% below the national median. National median is right now around $430,000. The homes that I buy are typically between $200,000 and $275,000. I do that because in that price range, 30% below the median, that's where you get your highest percentage of rent for mortgage dollars that are spent. On the opposite extreme, if I qualify for a $600,000 home, I might find that what I rent it for actually squeezes my cash flow dramatically. So I've got rules to make sure that I don't over leverage. And one more thing on that, there's always going to be people that are like, oh, aren't you meant to graduate from single family to multifamily to commercial and then skyscrapers? And for some, that is their path. But I've never been able to get a larger deal to pencil out as well as a great single family home. In fact, I did a 9-year study on 2,130 of my properties. We averaged a 60% ROI over 9 years from 2013 to 2021. If I were to compare that to multifamily or some of the people playing a bigger real estate game, their returns aren't 60%. They're often usually at best 20 to 30%. So Don't worry about graduating to bigger real estate and taking on more leverage. Instead, make sure that you're always graduating to a superior ROI, return on investment. Step 5, not building a team. Oof. This is one of the biggest mistakes that newbies make. It's part of the lone wolf syndrome. You see, real estate, it's not a solo game. There's so many people involved. You need mentors, contractors, agents, lenders, property managers. These people, they know the pitfalls that can help you avoid mistakes that are going to cost you time, money, frustration. Trying to get it all done alone is going to slow you down. It's definitely going to increase errors. You're going to cut corners without even knowing it. So what you want to do is what I did when I got started. You want to assemble the Avengers.
Avengers!
Assemble.
You want to assemble your power team. Your network is your safety net, and it's your growth accelerator, and it can make all the difference between struggling and thriving. So who's your initial power team going to start with? It's going to start with a realtor that understands that they're looking for a deal for an investor. So you want to buy it below market. You want to buy it in an area that has the right kind of cash flow. Next, you're going to want a lender that actually specializes in investment real estate, not primary residences. Those are two totally different lending markets. You're looking for someone that is closing at least 20 deals a month, because in that high volume, they're earning rewards and opening up programs with banks that will actually give them better rates that they end up passing on to you. Finally, if you're going to do property management or lease option, you want to line up the training and the mentor that's going to show you how to do that. And finally, instead of a rental, do a lease option. Line up a mentor that knows how to do that, has the contracts, can show you how to market it successfully, because a lease option is going to make you 2 to 3 times more money than a rental. So remember, avoid these 5 mistakes. Focus on cash flow, know your true expenses, research the neighborhoods, manage leverage carefully, and build a team that you can rely on. Real estate, it's not a game of luck. It's a game of strategy, discipline, numbers, and the choices that you make. Your outcome is ultimately going to be determined by the day you sign a deal, so you want to make sure that it's the right one. And don't forget to download the special infographic. I designed it so that you can reference all 5 mistakes anytime and stay on track. If you got an office, print it out, put it on the wall. As you watch my videos, I always give you these cheat sheets because it's here to educate you and help you become your best investor. If this helped, hit like, leave a comment with your biggest takeaway, and subscribe for more real estate insights. It's time to start building wealth the right way, and now you're way more ready.